Hello, good morning. I don't know if you can hear it, but the birds are chirping outside. Sun's out. It's a beautiful day. Let's install a USB-C port into a Game Boy Advance SP. This particular one we've got today is a funny playing example. The reason why I'm using funny playing specifically is because it's centered, or it's lifted rather. This is required for things like the slate. Let me see, I got one over here. This is required for things like the slate because if it's in its normal position, it's butted all the way up against the back of the back plate here, and you can't get your charger in. So the centered approach just pushes it out a little bit so you can get your USB-C. This particular, I just took a shower. Wow, steaming up everything. Like I said, this particular one is from Funny Playing. The one I just showed you, this is actually Gil Tessa's. As far as I can tell, Funny Playing just kind of directly copied them. I mean, I don't know. You can't have a copyright on something like that, right? But it's basically identical. The Gil Tessa one looks to be maybe slightly better quality. I don't know. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about adding USB-C to this one. Eventually, I'll make a series of videos on how to do individual mods. I think the USB-C is probably the most challenging, mainly because these pads right here on the top for charge, audio, all that stuff, these want to lift for very little reason. You don't need to give them much of a reason for them to mess up your day, okay? So let's go over a pretty safe approach of how to do that. The plan of attack is we're going to add new solder here to the ground pegs, stabilization pegs, and then we're going to remove the solder. It seems kind of counterproductive, but by adding fresh solder, you kind of soften everything up and make your life easier for removal. And then there's so little solder on this side that I'm gonna braid it up. All right, so let's get to it. Go ahead and just start adding my solder here. I use a flathead tip, like the screwdriver. That's just my preference. You can use whatever you're comfortable with. Soaked it a couple seconds there. Add a little bit. Boom. This SP is in really nice shape. Got it from my brother-in-law. Let's see here. Where's my solder sucker? You can use whatever implement you're most comfortable with, but the idea here is we want to get most of it out, like so, from each side, and then we're going to give it the wiggle test. And if it doesn't pass the wiggle test, we'll go at it again, because we want this leg here to break free. I want to break free. I want to break free. There we go. That's looking pretty good. I can tell there's a lot of excess solder though, so I'm going to grab the braid real quick. And we're going to lap up whatever's left. I'm changing sides. I'm changing my direction of attack. Boom. That was a pretty good pull right there. Got most of it out. And that's also a pretty good looking pull. All right, so that's the advantage of adding a little bit of solder. It really does make a nice difference. I'm going to get a sturdy pair of tweezers here. And very carefully, I'm going to wiggle. See, I got a little bit of wiggle there. Good. Boom, I got a little bit of wiggle there. Now you want to be really careful because now these are broken free, right? And now whatever pressure, whatever movement you get out of the port, it's going to hit our vulnerable traces. So we're going to get in here real quick. We're just going to remove all that stuff. We're going to remove as much as we can because science. Why because science? Because the less solder that's on the board means the less we have to heat up for removal, because we want this to come off as quickly as possible, because, you know, these PCBs, they're only designed to take so much heat for so long. So you want to minimize the amount of time under a hot air station. And to that, we have two options here. I can grab my hot air, which I'm going to go ahead and flick on. All right. If you don't have hot air, you really want to make sure these are free. You want to make sure that you can poke them and you see movement, right? Oh no, this is the wrong pair of tweezers, sorry. You want to really make sure that when you poke them, you get that nice looseness. Okay? Because this is not coming out unless these are free. I'll tell you right now. And then you're going to get a big solder ball, and you're going to drag it back and forth with the quickness. All right? You're going to add some flux, big blob of solder, and you're going to go back and forth while you counterweight right here and lift. Okay, that's not what we're going to do today. I'm going to use hot air because I have the right tool for the job. It's a quote I got from my dad here. He's always saying that, right tool for the job. So we're going to add a little bit of flux and add it to the ground peg to make our life a little bit easier. Now, if you want to go an extra step, if you're very new, you're not very sure of yourself just yet, it never hurts to put down a little bit of heat shielding. Okay, this is Captain Tape. It's never going to melt at the temperatures we're using anyway. And I'm covering up these little components right here so they don't slide around. Okay, maybe you're new to using hot air, or you're just not sure. It never hurts. Okay, to use a little bit of protection. All right, I'm letting my hot air warm up here. I'm my solder iron, I keep it 350 Celsius. My hot air, I use 380 Celsius at roughly half of the airflow. Okay, so I don't use a ton. I use the larger tip, and I don't use a ton of airflow, because you really want to be wary of components flying around. All right, back and forth, smooth motion. Can see the flux is already starting to bubble up here. Give it about 10 seconds or so. Okay, and then you're going to start prying. Gentle wiggle. It's not quite ready, but I can see we're almost there. Here we go. And just like that. No drama. Port's off. Okay, and now at this point I'm going to turn off my iron because, again, for ease, I like to use the needlepoint tip for this particular juncture. Or actually, first we're going to do a little more removal. I want to get those pads nice and flat so my port goes in nice and smoothly. Sorry, make sure you can see that. So same deal with the flat head. And there's not a ton to remove here. We're just going to kind of quickly go over it. Just want to make sure it's nice and smooth so my port goes in as flat as possible. There we go. Nothing to it. And again, be careful. Respect these pads. Respect these pads, okay? Your SP is not going to charge unless you've got this one right here. I think that's the 5 volt. And then we've got ground, and I want the rest of these are audio. The audio, ground, and I think left and right are these ones. I can't remember off the top of my head. But all these pads are important. Okay? If you're going to do USB-C with audio, you gotta keep them on. If you don't care about headphones, you just need that one that I pointed out. All right, a little bit of isopropyl alcohol, just cleaning the surface. I like to get flux off, basically, no matter what. I don't like to leave it on the board. It's corrosive. It's bad juju. Okay, and if you ever have charging problems, first thing to look at is this little fucker right here, EM8. It is a noise filter, so it makes the SP a little more quiet as it charges. Doesn't sound very important, but it is in circuit, so if there's something wrong with that, the circuit can't complete. So it's not going to charge. All right. So let's go ahead and get our Captain tape off of there. You don't need it, but again, it never hurts. I keep that up on my hood vent just to kind of quickly put down the same piece. Okay. So we'll start lining it up here. See, Funny Playing left me some presents. Like, you know, this is a fine port. I can see the Giltessa one's just a little bit nicer, frankly. Okay, I'm just trimming off this little bit of excess right here because it annoys me. I'm sure it's going to work out. And while we're doing this, I'll go ahead and turn off my iron. I should have done that a couple minutes ago. And I guess I'll take a minute to talk about the other mods that are going to go on this slate. So this one will have the power cleaner as well. If you like headphone audio, you should probably think about the power cleaner. A lot of people say it's snake oil, but it's an audio mod. It's not like Helder's 5-volt regulator, you know, where it directly helps the power. It adds a bunch of capacitance to these capacitors around the CPU. And it decreases the amount of noise. Specifically, what it does is it negates the extra noise that an IPS screen puts on the circuit. So it kind of brings you back to a base level. So if you like headphones, power cleaner is a must-have. If you like amps, I would say the power cleaner is also a must-have. It doesn't make sense to amplify a noisy circuit, right? You should take as much noise out of the equation as possible. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to recap. This electrolytic capacitor is responsible for driving power to sound assets. We're also going to clean the volume slider. This is another thing that can easily improve audio quality. And then we're going to open and clean this power switch right here too. This solves power light flicker. It can improve audio quality slightly, nominally. In general, like this is a wear and tear item. If you're gonna go to all these lengths, you should be cleaning that. You got to have your power right. And then we're also gonna throw on a light board too, LED light board, for the heck of it. And then he's gonna have the clear black buttons, so it shines through. And then his slate will have the blue faceplate. Really a big fan of blue with a clear black back, and that's going to look pretty saucy, I think. Not for me, for a wonderful man named Dave, who traded me a bunch of really cool stuff. I do accept trade-ins because at my heart, I'm still a collector. That's how I started. All right, and I'm taking off the old tip because it's very hot. We're going to do this carefully. I do not have a second iron, so we're just going to kind of make do. I did work one of my first real jobs, quote unquote. I worked at a barbecue pit, so I got a nice resistance to heat kind of built up already. All right, that's on. Now let's go ahead and prep. I do like a very light amount of flux on the pads. It just makes your life easier. Flux is amazing stuff, folks. It just makes solder do what you want it to do. And if you're not using it or you think you don't need it, you might be a fool. It's very possible. You might be a fool. Okay, we've got that roughly lined up. And now my strategy is I'm going to solder down one ground pad and get my alignment right. And then we'll do the rest. So let's go ahead and get in there. It's a little awkward with this tip. You can see it just takes it a second to kind of do what it's supposed to do. And also these ground pads are interesting too. Funny Playing, like, on the Gil Tessa ones, it's the complete circle. They'll line up with the complete circle, but they did this crescent moon deal here, which is interesting. And the precision tip is okay, but it's not really designed. You see, I have to kind of angle it so I get the maximum amount of surface touching the solder. Okay. I can tell already it's a little bit off, but we're going to check. So I like to try to line it up. Oof, ooh, I touched my other tip. I like to try and line it up with the link port, so we're actually kind of close. We'll lay it down here. Come on. This is where having a second iron would be really helpful. Okay, we'll let it dry. Okay, alignment's looking pretty good. I want to be able to see just the end of the pad here. Just the very end, that's all we need. And I think we're there. Okay, we're lined up. We're lined up with the link port pretty nicely. I think I'm ready to commit. Yeah, we're looking pretty good. So I'll go and clean up these ground posts later when I've got the flathead back on. But for now, just adding a little bit of solder gets the job done. We'll go back over here, do the same thing. Adding a little bit of solder kind of drastically increases the amount of heat surface that I have, if that makes any sense. Okay. Now I've already got flux on the board, so we're just going to apply a dab to our tip here, and I'm going to get 45-degree angle. Boom. If this is the USB-C and this is the motherboard, I'm going to go boom, right in like this. Okay. Looking good. I need a little more solder there. And I can just add as I'm in there too. That's perfectly acceptable. You just want to be really careful that you don't add a lot, okay? It's super easy to bridge here. And if you bridge, you're going to get stuff like one of your audio channels doesn't work. Like it'll just come through on left and not right, or vice versa. Boom. Okay, and then the last note I have for you is when I pulled up, you notice I came and went straight up. All right. I don't know how well you can see that, but it does appear that we have all the connections that we need, and it's pretty much aligned. So last step is we're going to clean up, and then we're going to go test it. And then, like I said, you may have an issue where one of the channels doesn't work or something like that, and it's probably because you made a bridge or your connection is incomplete. All right, so you want to leave like, I don't know, like a 1/16 or 2. You don't want the edge of this pad to completely cover the pad on the PCB. You want there to be a little bit of a gap. All right, well, we're going to go test this, but if you don't hear back from me, you can assume that it worked. All right. Oh, yeah, and the other thing we're going to do, on this slate, we're going to remove the shoulder buttons, but the other thing that I advise people to do before you chuck out your shoulder buttons, because on a lot of these don't work, or they don't work well, you can take out this rubber stopper and then dunk contact cleaner or ISO inside here and articulate it, and you'll revitalize this shoulder button. A lot of them are perfectly good. They're just dirty. All right, but that's it for me. I hope this was helpful for you. Good luck on your modding adventures, and we'll catch you in the next one.